You're a busy professional. You don't have time for fluff. You need strategies that work, and you need them fast. Welcome to Busy Pro Fast Wellness with me, your host, Alan Welsh. We're here to give you science-backed hacks and actionable tips to boost your focus, minimize friction, and maximize your results. Less time, more impact. It's time to get well, stay strong, and thrive. Let's get to it. Hello and welcome back to Busy Pro Fast Wellness. And today's episode is slightly different to my usual format because I had a super high caliber guest lined up, someone who's spoken on international stages and been featured on major global media. But unfortunately, a sudden rainstorm took down her electricity and her internet, and as a result, we had to postpone. But she's assured me she will come on the show and book another slot in the near future. So with a bit of pondering regarding this situation, I thought, oh gosh, what do I do now? And I decided to pivot and do something a little special. And I think it's special. It really results from me thinking about what I'm up to at the moment. And a few of you may know, but I'm in the final stages of writing a new book, and it's called The Busy Pro Fast Wellness Playbook. Bit of a mouthful, just like my title. Anyway, I have in this book 30 tips and 6 golden tips from 6 past guests. And all of the book really is drawn from the first 60 podcast episodes. And I've also, amidst all this, woven together my own personal stories of performance, music, living and working in different countries, health, wellness, education, and ultimately the whole learning curve process. And one of those golden tips comes from someone who guested on episode 53 of my show, Casey Ruff of the podcast Boundless Body Radio. Anyway, I guested on Casey's show a couple of weeks ago as well, and Casey generously gave me permission to use a couple of short clips of our conversation as a teaser, I suppose. It's a way of gaining interest for the full interview that drops on January the 2nd. So today you're getting a sneak preview of that. And on a bit of a side note here, Casey had a throaty cold when we recorded this episode, and he could have easily postponed, obviously. But despite this strained voice, he ploughed on through the interview. Respect. So in this first short segment, Casey asks me something that sits right at the heart of this podcast. How I hold space for conflicting ideas, especially around nutrition, beliefs, and health, without becoming rigid or dogmatic myself. And here is that moment.
One thing that's really stood out to me is you've had different guests with a lot of different messages on your show, and you do a great job just taking in the information without getting boxed into a certain way of thinking. You know, I've heard you speak with plant-based people like me that are carnivore. That can seem like we're at odds with people, but you're able to take in that information and share everything. How are you able to, take in all these different opinions that seem to kind of conflict with each other without taking a side per se?
Well, because that is part of the, that's what we do in life, isn't it? Really, it's about flexibility. And everybody's got a different story. Everybody's got a different angle and everything. So therefore, even whether that be to do with nutrition, whether that to be to do with politics, I think it's really foolhardy to suddenly, take one particular perspective and then run with that. I feel that we do need to. And I've been influenced, because I was pretty much a flexitarian when you talk about nutrition. You and another guest both influenced me to intake more protein, because I wasn't doing that. And now I'm eating more meat as a result of speaking to you and doing some more research and listening to great doctors, Anthony Chaffee, whatever, who's at the other extreme. But it's, you can't just go along and say, well, I'm going to entirely dismiss that because it's bogus. That's about the research. That's about the curiosity. That's about going into things and not just thinking, oh no, that's wrong. Because there's never a right or wrong. It's kind of what you experiment and what works for you. So that's really how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, I love that. We talked about that in our episode that you hosted me on. We talked about the quality of studies, and we talked about the highest quality of studies being a randomized controlled trial, and it's just nearly impossible in nutrition to be able to do that. And you think like, okay, well, what's the weakest evidence out there? And that would be like a case study, just one person out there sharing their story and trying something. But for that one person, that is the strongest study you can have. And just all of us, I think, need to remember that we can always play around with things. We can change things. The goal of all of this is for us to be healthy and happy and find meaning in our lives and to be able to share with others.
Good stuff. And this second segment explores the crossover between musicianship and wellness, and how real growth comes from slow, imperfect practice, not perfection. And it's a powerful parallel between performance and health. So here's the next clip.
That are just getting started, and they want him to listen to their songs and listen to their tracks and recommend them to record labels and all that stuff. And he says he never listens to them because his philosophy is you don't want to skip the steps. You don't want to skip the day to day and the practicing and all the gigs you have to do where nobody shows up and you're not very good, and like you refine your craft. And you're right, there are so many parallels in music to also health where, yeah, it can be a little bit boring. It is a little bit of, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but just stick with certain habits. And again, your podcast does a great job covering that. But I think it's really interesting that you learned that and learned that there was a lot of crossover between those two fields as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it was fascinating to see that, and also the idea that you don't have to be perfectionist about anything, because if you are going to be practicing an instrument, many people will just think, oh, I'll practice the stuff that I already know, that I can already play, and you need to be doing the stuff that's difficult. You need to be doing the stuff that's messy, and you need to be really honing in on those things, those little sections, those little one bar there that you can't really play it. Slow it down. You're approaching it. You're using that flexibility. It's how you practice, and it's the same thing. It's how you treat your wellness, and it's simple. There's no rocket science here. There really isn't. It's just simple, but it just needs to be focused. And you need to realize that with that flexibility as well, you can go off and think, well, actually, I'm tired, but I'm still going to play. I'm just going to put a backing track on improvise along with that. That's not going to give me the same benefits, the same rewards, but let's face it, that's compassion. You're thinking, well, let's give myself a break. And that's a break for me. That's just great. I'll just stick onto music, put the headphones on, play along to a jazz piece or a funk piece or something, and just impro. And, it's great because that's still going to keep the lip in. It's still going to keep the ear going in. There's lots of different aspects to playing a music instrument, as there are in your approach to how you treat your body and how you do things with physical and mental, and they all feed in the same way. So that these correlations they're there all the time. So yeah,
I love that. That's such a great point. We mentioned that you were quite the runner.
And in this final clip, we turn towards time, one of my favorite topics, productivity and outrageous expectations, the kind that many of us blindly try to tackle every day when we try to do everything. This is inspired by the work of Oliver Burkeman and a timeless priority exercise which is often attributed to Warren Buffett. Therefore, this one lands so deeply for busy professionals. I hope you enjoy. So it's these people. I mean, I've been obsessed with time productivity as well. Because of what I've done over the years and tried to fit in so many things, and then realized through Oliver Burkeman that the game is rigged. You can't get everything done, and he's a great proponent of that. And you can't. So therefore, go easy on yourself. Just get the one or two things done that are important, that move the needle. So yeah, it's been great though to research these people and to read so much of their material or to listen to the audiobooks, whatever. happens at that particular. If it's a really good, I listen to the audiobook and then I'll buy the copy of the book. Often that's what I'll do, because
That's great.
yeah.
Well, you, my friend, now have officially been on a podcast where we've also hosted Oliver Berkman. His 4,000 Weeks was absolutely incredible, and I caught him at a really good time that he wasn't super busy and he could appear on our show. That book is incredible, and the idea that you think you have to go out and do so many things and accomplish so many things. I remember the thought that he shared. I think he gave the credit to Warren Buffett when he had this quote of basically like, somebody asked him what's the most, the best thing he could do for his productivity. And Warren Buffett suggested writing down the top 25 priorities in your life and then going to number 6. And starting at number 6, you start crossing all of them out all the way down to number 25 to say, like, you want to accomplish all these things, but really your top priorities are going to suffer if you're spending a little bit of time on some of these other things. And that thought helped me quit a bunch of things that I had been, thinking I was enjoying, and they were taking away, time and resources from other things that really influenced my decision on productivity and things, the expectations we set for ourselves. He did a wonderful job in that book.
Oh, great. I didn't realize he'd been on your show. That's brilliant to know. I will. Great stuff. That's all the clips done. What I love about all of these 3 moments is that together they capture pretty much what Busy Pro Fast Wellness stands for, and that is staying curious instead of rigid, practicing consistency instead of perfection, and choosing fewer, better priorities instead of feeling that overwhelm. And that same philosophy runs straight through the playbook I'm attempting to finish right now. Simple, repeatable, human, and grounded. And as I say, the full interview with Casey will be released on January the 2nd on Boundless Body Radio. And I truly recommend it, even with that higher toned, duck-like voice that Casey is sporting for this episode. So next week, I'm back with fresh guests and new conversations. And once all the permissions are in place from my chosen 6 golden tipsters, and I'm referring to those previous guests here in the first 60 episodes. Once all that's in place, I'll be releasing a 2-part guest gold series, which I thought up yesterday or 2 days ago. It's going to be drawn directly from the upcoming book. I look forward to doing that. And thank you so much for listening to this special preview episode of Busy Pro Fast Wellness. If you enjoyed today's offering, please follow the show, like the show, or leave a short review. It really helps more busy professionals find simple ways to feel better, fast. Until next time, goodbye for now.